going to share my lesson plan and how I work with students as well as resource teachers in how to use digital reading and writing accessibility features using a program called Read and Write. Read and Write is a Google Chrome extension in which we use on student and staff Chromebooks. It is free to all teachers as well. It is paid for students though. However, students in which we qualify, we provide licenses to. So today I'm going to be walking through how I work with staff and students. The student and RSP teacher that I had scheduled to work with for this recording, unfortunately could not make it today. So I am going to attempt to record this video in a format that is exactly how I teach students and staff. So the first thing that I need to do is I share on my Assistive Technology Classroom page. I created a Assistive Technology Google Classroom page in which I can communicate with staff and students directly. I can post messages, basic messages, to my students. So for this particular student, I shared the information that we were going to be using for our session together, the lesson in which we prepared. So I'm going to walk you through exactly how I would work with a student and staff. Generally, I try to have both of them on at the same time so that we can do this together. The first thing in which I walk our teachers through. This is not as specific to our students, although I do share this doc with them. So I create a hyper doc. The first thing that I do is I try to front load our staff with what the accessibility features are. And the first thing that we do is we start with an introduction and overview. And the introduction and overview is a YouTube video that I've created on my channel. I have a library of pre-recorded training videos that I share out with students and staff. With these videos, I am able to convey a large amount of the information in which I need to share with my students. So and this is generally how I work with my case managers. So I will play this video. I will only play a few minutes of the video for sake of the training purpose. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm sharing this with the teacher and I walk through the entire sheet. So as I outlined in my conceptual flow assignment, it's not enough to just teach the digital tools. I've noticed the large deficit with a lot of our staff is that they just don't know how to use the Google platform to be able to deliver the digitally accessible materials that we need. So the first thing I do is I preface our staff on what the importance of the Google Apps for Education platform does for us. And I'll go ahead, for the sake of training purposes and time, I'll go ahead and fast forward through this a little bit. But essentially what we do is we walk through and we discuss what is digital accessibility. We talk about what is digital accessibility, and then we start to showcase some of the internal embedded features of the Chromebook and how we can provide those Tier 1 UDL strategies as assistive technology tools. So once I have my staff walk through this introduction and overview video, which essentially is me guiding them through this sheet, and what it allows me to do is provide a much higher quality of consultation at being one person that serves a district of 62,000 students and over 500 special education staff, it's very challenging for me to reach everybody. So the way that I have to do this is being very organized in how I deliver my content. And that is why I use these guiding forms as well as hyperdocs, creating it in a hyperdoc format so that I can embed videos also. So again, this is more specific to the RSP teacher and case manager. And how I walk through this is we talk about IEP language versus what it is in the Google language. So if we're talking about dictation as a Google tool, then we go back, and that is really what is called a speech to text in the IEP language. Again, in Google language, we're looking at select to speak, and in IEP language, we're talking about text to speech and full screen magnifier, dock magnifier, or contrast. Those are vision impairment tools, and we refer to those as magnification in IEP language. So it's just important for our case managers to understand what that looks like in an IEP. So what we're going to do now is move on, and what we would do from there is we would move into our specific tools. Now, these are the specific tools in which are offered on the Chromebook. The reason why we focus so heavily on Chrome tools is that all of our students in our district, we are a one-to-one Chrome district. So as you see here, Chromebox, we describe what Chromebox is. And then again, we go into a Chromebox video here as a hyperdoc. So it will hyperlink us right out to this Google training on Chromebox. This is the actual, so that is the actual Chrome publication in terms of how to use Chromebox. It's highly detailed and it's very quality training. Generally, I will make a lot of our own Chromebox tutorial or our own tutorials in terms of assistive technology. This particular one, I ended up using the Google one because you couldn't beat it. It was so fantastically done. Select to speak, again, text to speech in IEP language. So we walk through a basic explanation of what that is, how the accommodation can be delivered, and then we move into, again, the video in which I created that is part of our library for training. So, and again, this is just another training tool that we use more specifically for our RSP teachers, as those are the teachers that are interacting with most frequently with those Tier 1 UDL assistive technology strategies. And when we talk about Tier 1 UDL assistive technology strategies, we're really talking about the delineation between what is a device and or service. And in these cases, they don't elicit a device, nor do they elicit a service, but they are embedded tools under what we use as a district as universal design of learning. So again, we move through this sheet. And again, this is a little bit more specific for the case manager, although I also do share this with our students as well, just so they have extra reference. So what I will generally do from there is I will have our students as well as our teachers. I try to have the RSP teachers and the students on at the same time, and I often do full group settings as well. Unfortunately, I couldn't organize that fast enough for this assignment. But what we'll do from there is on the Google, again, this was shared with the student, on the Google Classroom, they can hit the link and it'll link them out to what we call the student practice exercises for using a program called Read and Write. So from this point, what I would really do is I would have the student come on with me. And at that point, what we would do is I would then have the student join me inside of the Zoom meeting, and then I would work specifically with the RSP teacher as well as the student, which I'm going to demonstrate now. So I'm running two devices. The first device that you see is my device, in which I would be working with the student on, and the second device that you'll see running, I have labeled as RSP teacher and student. So what I'm going to do now is I would then ask the student. So I would ask the student as I'm working with he or she to share their screen. So what I will have the student do, and I'm working on a district provided Chromebook, just like I would have the student on. And again, I'm running this lesson just like I would be working with the student. So I'm going to ask the student to share. I'll ask the student to share their desktop. And from this point, we will have them share the entire screen so that I could really get an understanding of what they are doing. So again, I'm asking the student to share their screen. So you'll see here, you'll see the student is sharing his or her screen with me, and what they have pulled up is the Google Classroom the comment in which I left to the student. I will then ask the student to go ahead and open up the Google Doc, which is again that practice exercises for using read and write. Okay. Now, this particular case is a student which we have already set up read and write for. So we do that on the back end. We do that in something called Google Groups. And on Google Groups, we are able to set up all of their read and write features for them so that they don't have to go on and do it themselves. So as you see here at the top, you will see the student has populated the read and write toolbar. So anybody that's familiar with Google Docs is going to know that this is a little bit different. This is just a little bit different. Now in this particular case, this student does not have a preference. This entire toolbar is completely customizable. So we do not have this particular student does not have a preference for hover speech. Therefore, we don't have hover speech as an available afforded digital reading and writing accommodation. So, but what we do have is the features here. So what I will do is I'm working with the student, and again, as well as the RSP teacher, I will ask the student to perform the basic functions. And as I'm working with them, I will ask the student to do what I'm asking as I move through the guiding sheet and questionnaire. So for the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use the dictionary feature. Now the dictionary feature is very, very basic. If I go ahead and I highlight the word frog, for example, I come up here and I hit the dictionary. Now it's very basic. Okay, it gives me the definition, a dictionary definition of frog. Okay, a small animal with long legs that lives on both water and land. And again, then I will move through and I will ask the student a little bit higher level question of what is biology, and I will ask the student, he or she, to use the dictionary feature. And again, it gives me in real time, gives me the dictionary answer, the study of life and structure of living things. Okay, and then I would have them do the same for baseball. And again, these are really just general and they're specific to really reinforce and engage a student in building those assistive technology and digital accessibility tools. The second thing I'll ask the picture to do, and this is for some of our students, is really beneficial. I will have them do what's called picture dictionary. I'll have them highlight the word frog. I will ask them to go up and select picture dictionary, and it will give me the picture of the frog. Now I can do a couple different things with this. I could save the image as, and I can import it here. This is something I also share with a lot of our moderate to severe teachers that don't have access to an icon system. I show them how to use this to be able to create their own icons, just as a side note. So depending on what level of students the RSP teacher or teacher may work with, kind of dictates how I show them how to use some of the tools. Biology, same thing for the picture dictionary. I will go ahead and ask the student to highlight biology and then use the picture dictionary. And it gives me some basic icon communication. And then the same thing with baseball. Now we start to get into a little bit more of the features. Now again, when we're referring to accessibility tools, we are talking in this case about the read and write company calls it play, pause, and stop. Again, going back to IEP language, we're talking about text to speech, turning text into spoken language. Okay. What we're going to do here is we're going to do something basic. I will have the student read the paragraph, and then what I will do is I will go ahead and highlight this paragraph, and I will hit play. Play.
Play plus stop. Sometimes your teacher gives a lot of directions in class and on worksheets and you need to hear them out loud.
I will do the same thing. I will ask the
This
student
tool will help you do that.
to pause. To understand the idea that play, pause, and stop works in that it's kind of like a CD. That's what I tell the students, is that as they're playing through something, maybe a longer passage and it's a lot to digest, that they can go ahead and pause it as well as stop it. Play, pause, and stop is a really powerful tool, and this is where we'll see a lot of our students really take off in how they use their accessible technologies. So again, that is how we use play, pause, and stop. The next feature that I showcase in this for this particular student, because this is something that is also an afforded accommodation for them, is the ability to use talk and type. Google language calls it dictation. IEP language calls it speech to text, turning spoken language into text. So how we use the talk and type feature, okay, I'll go ahead and read it to the student. This is the speech to text tool. Use your microphone or headphones to write about what you had for breakfast in the box below using the talk and type tool. So I'll go ahead, and I always tell the students, that's why I have it in big red, is to make sure that we look for the blinking cursor. Now we see the blinking cursor is in the correct place. I go up here to the talk and type, which is basically headphones, and that's going to go ahead and input. That's going to go ahead and give us the microphone tool here to the Another thing too, make sure that we're very, very explicit in how we work with students, that when we turn that on, if they're talking, it's going to go ahead and pick that up. So I'm going to ask the student, write something about what you had for breakfast. This morning, I had eggs and toast for breakfast, period. Now, it's very important that we stress to students that when we are using the dictation or the speech to text feature, that we have to speak our punctuation. So as you see in this demonstration, I was able to tell the computer, period, and then it inserted the punctuation. And it's pretty accurate in terms of most punctuation. Some of the higher level punctuation features like apostrophes, it will get, I would say, I'm noticing about 75% of the time. But again, it is important that as we work with students that we make sure that we are telling them to use the punctuation. So speak in full sentences. Speak slowly, speak clearly, and speak in full sentences. The next feature that we try to stress for our students is the use of highlight tools. Highlight tools are really great. They help bring attention to a lot of our students that may have executive functioning disorders. And in this particular case, working with this student, that is something that she struggles with, is highlighting key features. So what I ask the students to do is use the highlight tools. And what I'm going to ask this particular student to do is highlight plants in green. So dog, no. Hawaii, yellow. Frog, no. But a maple is green. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight green. Now the next question is animals. I'm going to go ahead and highlight dog. And that's going to be the blue or kind of the cyan color. Frog. I'm going to go ahead and go blue again. Places. Highlight in pink. So Hawaii. Don't we all wish we could be there? And Alaska in pink. And Georgia would also be pink. And you get the idea there. You get the idea of how to use this tool as a teaching strategy for the use of accessible technologies. Now, if I wanted to clear the highlights, what I do, okay, Miss Frost went highlight happy. clear off her mess so you can start over. So I go ahead and highlight I go and select all of the highlights. I go to this broom feature and I have the student click clear highlights. And now all of my highlights are gone. For the sake of training purposes, I'll go ahead and put them back on there just so the student has this as a fresh document. Collect highlights. Now something that's really cool is we can collect highlights. So if I go to this feature right here, this looks like a recycling wheel, I can go ahead and collect highlights. I'm going to go ahead and collect all the highlights. And what it'll do, a new document containing your highlights is being created. So I stress to the students, I'm going to go ahead and sign in as me. I would have the student sign in on their own so that it would go to their Google Drive, but for the sake of training, I'm going to go ahead and let it bring up another page. So it automatically creates another Google Doc, okay, for highlights. Now I can use these as a training tool. I can use these as a study tool as I go back, and it will be available as a live document for our students to come back at a later date. I'll go ahead and close that down. Now, the next feature that I think is really incredible is something called vocabulary. And this is a great study tool that I try to stress to our students, particularly our RSP students, as most of them are really taking general education classes and just need a little bit of extra support. So this is called vocabulary. So what I have them do is I will go here and I will go with the vocabulary tool. Now, I think this is one of the most powerful tools in terms of studying an executive function. So I go ahead and click on the list right here that says vocabulary list. Same thing as before, this is going to generate out to a vocabulary list. And again, this automatically generates in the Google Drive. And what it did is it does a couple different things. It creates a table for us. It creates a hyperdoc for us, which I think is really powerful. So you'll see here you'll see the word Alaska. It'll give the meaning, okay? It's the 49th state admitted to the Union. It'll also give us a symbol of what that is. And then we can also create notes. And again, what I always stress to our students is if they don't want to type it, they can go ahead and use the read and write feature right here of talk and type. Study for Friday's test, found on page 327. And there we go. In real time, I was able to use the text-to-speech feature or the speech-to-text feature to be able to put a note in there for myself. Same thing with dog, and it follows through with frog, Hawaii, maple, and vocabulary as well. So, and I think that's great because now it's available in their Google Drive, and they didn't really have to do any extra work. It did it on its own. So we can come back and study that at a later date. So moving through the guiding form again. Pushpin is a really great option that we use with our students, and sometimes you may need to comment on something, but your teacher allows you to leave a note with your voice instead of typing. So with the pushpin option, we are able to leave a voice note for our students. So here we go with the voice note. I'll go ahead and click at the end of this sentence and leave a typed or voice note here telling me about your favorite food. So I'll go here, I'll leave a voice note. My favorite food is pizza because it's consistent and never lets me down. And I can go ahead and insert it. It's taking a second. As you can see, the colors at the bottom means it's compressing it. And there it goes. Now it lives over here at the right, and I left a note from my teacher within the doc. That is, my favorite food is pizza because it's consistent and never lets me down. And now I have a voice note that I quickly and easily share with my teacher. Freehand drawing tool is not something that we use too often. However, I do generally add it in here for students so that we can have that option as well. So generally, I will have the student, when I work with the student and I consult with the student, I will have the student use this multiple times. And I have several different adaptations to this for student levels, for students' preference. It's not realistic to give the same thing to younger grade students, so we have a little bit of a tailored guiding lesson for those students as well. So I'll go ahead and stop share. Okay, so I'll ask the student to stop sharing. And then what I will do is I will come back to my main page, and I will then go over some other details with the student and answer any questions that they may have. Generally, I can get these trainings done in about 10 minutes. Then have some YouTube videos, which I've shot as a playlist that I will send them as a follow-up. I will also send them to the RSP teacher. This is a great way I found that keeps it keeps not only the student engaged, but it's also a great way to train the staff. I find that there's a lot of disconnect often, actually between the staff and the technology. The students pick it up very quick. They're digitally fluent. They've learned, or at least in Stockton Unified, they've lived inside of what we call the Google ecosystem. So they are very familiar with the use of Google products. Generally, it's the teachers that need a little bit of support on this. And the reason why I include the RSP teachers in this is just to provide a little bit of prompting for the student to make sure that, is he, she using the accessibility features that are afforded to them within their IEP? So I hope this was a quality insight into how I run a Universal Design and Learning Tier 1 assistive technology lesson with my students or with groups of students. I perform this even at the high school level. I will perform this with even up to 10 students and assists as well as teachers, because the assists now in the digital world are really critical to this too. And again, it's just that prompting level, make sure that they're using the afforded accessibility features that they've been trained on.